Join me today as I try to recreate a tree that was typical for the baby boomers of the 50s and 60s. So what you're seeing right now is a typical tree that baby boomers saw in the late 50s all the way through the 60s, I would say. And no matter where you went, your friends, your family, grandma, grandpa, aunts and uncles, the trees all looked the same. They kind of had an asymmetrical shape. Many times you could see the central bark of them. They were covered in ornaments in terms of Christmas balls, mostly shiny, bright ornaments. They had big lights on them, and they were generally covered in icicle tinsel. There was no sleekness, there was no theme, there was none of that. Basically, many people had their trees up on a tabletop, and they would have a train running around the bottom of the tree. And right here is a typical family picture that everyone had during that time. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Life with Marion and Joe and our continuation of our Christmas 2023 series. Wow, this has been going on a long time. But anyway, as I said in my intro, I got this idea that I wanted to try to recreate a Christmas tree that was typical for the baby boomers of the 50s and the 60s. Now, back then, everybody's tree looked basically the same. They weren't sleek and, trendy and themed and whatnot. Everybody's tree kind of looked like everybody's tree. So if you went by your aunts and uncles, your grandma and grandpa, or your friends, and everybody's tree basically looked the same. It was a Christmas tree. So I get, and then it changed along the way. Like later on in the 60s, they started to become a little bit more sleek and trendy and, things like that. But back then in the late 50s and up to the mid 60s, everybody's tree basically looked the same. They were basically what looked like an asymmetric tree of today is what they call it. That a lot of times you could see the central bark of the tree, and then the branches were, kind of like sprunged all the way out. The tree didn't have a really neat conical shape. Whether it was real or whether it was artificial, it really didn't matter. It had kind of like a very disjointed kind of a look. But one good thing about it was it did allow the ornaments to hang very nicely on the tree. Now, back then, everybody basically used Christmas balls, and a lot of people used the shiny bright balls. That's what they did. And we all had those same kind of ornaments. Very rarely did you see other things other than Christmas balls. I remember it wasn't until, I want to say, the late 70s when my mother decided that she wanted, ornaments on the tree that weren't Christmas balls. But prior to that, it was all Christmas balls. Why did I want to do this? Well, I decided to do this because I wanted it to be nostalgic for Marion and myself. It's a tree that I put in our bedroom, and it was a last minute thought that I did it. I was going through some pictures and stuff, and I was like, hey, I wonder if I can do that. I think it might be, nice. So I really didn't give it a lot of thought. Probably if I recreate it next year, it's going to be a lot different. So you have to stay tuned for next year to see if it's going to be better than it was. So better than it is now. So what I did was I used a 4-foot tree. Now I'm going to show you, I have a clip that I had to do from the outside, and I'm going to insert that right now. Okay, so I'm outside because the tree that I did inside is kind of done already. So I wanted to show you how I went about trying to create this asymmetrical look on a tree. So here's the tree. I actually have this one outside, but it's the same one I used inside. It's about 4-foot tall tree, and it's a typical conical shape, and it was, something that I got in Home Depot that was for outside. But anyway, so what I did was I began inserting branches from other trees. Now, when I get rid of trees, a lot of times what I'll do is I remove some branches or all the branches, and I keep them in a box, and I can use them as picks and fillers and other things. So what I did was I put branches into this tree. Now, this one actually has them all the way around. The one I did for this presentation, I actually put a branch in, left a space, put a branch in, left a space, and put a branch in. Then I came up about 6 inches, and I put a branch in, like there was one here and one here. So now this one I placed in here, and then in here and in here, and then I would go up 6 inches, and then I would put like the ones that were on the bottom, the same thing here, 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 and here. Now, in order for it to look absolutely correct, you see how I did this? I cleared it all the way down to the trunk of the tree. And if I do this tree again next year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a pool noodle in there, paint it like a grayish brown so it looks like the bark of the tree. Now, the one that I have done, I couldn't leave as big a space in here because these branches weren't holding in enough, which I'm kind of upset now that I'm looking at this one. I like this one actually way better. I could have used this one, but it is what it is. So that's how you build the asymmetrical tree. You can actually add just branches in from another old tree and just stagger them, and then keep working up the tree and staggering them as you go along. Now, these trees also, like, our trees from the the boomer generation, we didn't have these mini lights on our trees. We used the bigger lights. But what I wanted to do is I wanted it to have some kind of ambiance, but I didn't go crazy wrapping every single branch like I would like a Rockefeller Center tree. I kind of, see how I just did it? I kind of just like wove it through the tree so that it would just give kind of a background look. So if you want to recreate this, you don't have to go crazy. I think on this tree I used the one up, the one that I did, not this one, but the one I did, I used 300 of these mini lights in red just to give it a background ambiance. So something that we all had were these bubble lights. And what would happen is as the lights became heated, they would form these air bubbles that would travel up and down that extended stem right there. And they were really neat and mesmerizing, and we all loved them and we all had them. But what happened was every year you would take them out and one or more of them would be broken and they wouldn't work properly. And they were kind of hard to replace, and then they got expensive, so they kind of went away and no one had them anymore. But in addition to those, we also used these C9 bulbs. Now, they were very big, very bright, and very hot. And you know what? When I think back now, we're lucky that there weren't more fires, because these bulbs got really, really hot. They were big, and everybody had them on the tree in combination with those bubble lights and other lights as well. So, I mean, they were pretty, but dangerous. So in order to create that look, what I did was I have these Sylvania LED lights, which they're LED and they're covered with the plastic outer shell that looks just like the C9 bulbs. I got them in Walmart. Now you can see these are $43, but that's for a set of 50 or 2 sets of 50. I only got I think my sets are 20s, and they look just like them and they don't have the heat. So the next thing we all had on our trees was tinsel. Yeah, and wow, is it messy, and it's still messy. And as I was putting it on this tree, I heard my mother saying, one strand at a time, one strand at a time. And by the end, we were just throwing it on the tree. But it does give it a magical look, and I think it's what finished the whole tree off. And even when I did this recreation of a tree, it just makes it magical. I thought I'd show it to you with the lights off first, because it really reminds me of my childhood, for real. It's kind of like how the trees looked. So let me show you with the lights on. Okay, so look how stinking cute that is. So let's take a look at it. Now, I didn't have any shiny brights left, but I did have some glass baubles left, so I put only glass on the tree because it has a different kind of look than plastic. I also used these dangling pine cones just to give it a more natural look, and I put a ribbon on them, which you can see back there, and then I used a tiny clothespin that Marianne found at the Dollar Tree to connect them. And I also used these wooden snowflakes. Now, that's not something that we would have used when we were kids, but I thought that they added nicely. Now, a lot of people had stars on the top of their tree. A lot of people had angels on the top of the tree. but a lot of people had these points on top of their tree as well. And this is from the 1960s. In fact, this is my grandmother's tree topper. Maybe it was something for the Empire State Building or the Chrysler Building or something, to make the tree appear taller. But a lot of people had those points. So I thought, how appropriate. I dug that out and I put that on top of the tree. Now take a look at these fake C9 bulbs. These are the ones I told you about in Walmart. They're actually LED lights, and that's a plastic covering, and they do not get hot at all. And then in the background, what I did was I used red lights just to set some ambiance. Now I put the tree on an ottoman and in a basket, again to make it look like it was a natural tree. And remember, a lot of us had tabletop trees back then. But I also added this blanket, and I know you're not going to believe it, but that's the blanket that I used to take to kindergarten for nap time. Yep, can you believe it? I still have it, and it's in really good shape. And so I put that down here with that hat box and this beautiful pony that my father bought us way back then. And he's a little bit, he's had seen better days, his finish, but I think it adds to the charm of the whole thing. So I think the entire vignette is absolutely reminiscent of the baby boomer years Christmas trees. So tell me what you think about it. What do you think about this? What was your memories of your Christmas trees from childhood? This is what ours looked like, and it's been a long time, and it's really nice to see. Last night I had it on when we were in bed, and it's absolutely mesmerizing. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video, and like always, please subscribe. If you just stumbled on me, give me a thumbs up. It helps with my channel. Drop me a comment, and you can look for me on our private Facebook group, Life with Marian and Joe, and on Instagram at designs by _Joe. Okay, everybody, thanks for stopping by, and I will be seeing you really soon. The home tour is coming up soon, okay? Take care. Bye-bye. Hope everybody's doing well. Gotta love that tinsel.